Welcome to Rex Arthur's channel, and this is a channel that talks about LGBTQ issues from around the world with a humanistic perspective. And today we are continuing with the democracy restructured and discussing using Obama's presidency and Trump's presidency, comparing the two to each other to show the diversified democracy and the majority democracy. Now, we are back to, let's go back to the history of democracy. And in Greece, what happened is, in Greece, there was non-partisan democracy or individuated democracy, whereby everyone gave their views about, or people, the ones who were schooled, and they gave their views about how to govern themselves, and whoever carried the day in terms of like votes, in terms of saying like, yes, we agree with your way or how you're viewing things, then that would be the law. So the law was made amongst people. The democracy was from the people and the people's views. They gave their views, and whoever's view carried the day amongst all those people became law. Then after that, later on, they picked up, there's now the partisan democracy, whereby you have parties, and which happened now, instead of having everybody giving their view and then people picking the best view from all those people who have shared their views, you just have like two parties, and both parties have their ideologies. And when people go and vote, they vote for whichever party they want, and the party that has the most votes wins. And that party wins a lot of things. Not only does it get the power, it also gets the chance to make laws which they can do for even 100 years. One party can be just the only party making laws. Like Tanzania, it's only one party that has been in power, and it's almost going to hit over 60 years, and they have made the laws for all that time. So it can happen. And anyway, then that's the partisan democracy, which is taking place in the world today in very many countries. And then now we are proposing, or we are observing, the demographic democracy. And demographic democracy means the demographic classes taking control. They have power now in the they have democratic power other than a political party. So by demographic, I mean demographic classes like women is a demographic class, men is a demographic class, the disabled is a demographic class, LGBTQ people, a demographic class. Then you have different racial classes that are demographic classes, and also tribal, in other countries that still have tribes. So that's the diversified democracy, or what we call the demographic democracy, whereby your unit, your diverse unit, or your demographic unit is considered, is part of the power cake. Unlike the partisan democracy, whereby it's basically two parties that are in control. And so now we want to go back, because we've already discussed about this in the other video. So we want to focus on using Obama and Trump as the example of comparing or contrasting the diversified democracy and the majority democracy. Now, for Obama, he was mostly is a good representative of diversified democracy, and this was evidenced through the people he picked, the makeup of his cabinet, the makeup of the top officers in government, whereby, he put a woman of color to be an attorney general, he put another man, also a man of color to be attorney general, and put a Latino in the Supreme Court. He did a lot of diversification of American system, which was very good, because it was to paint the picture, the real picture of America, that America is not just necessarily a white dominated country. Even if it is white dominated, it also has other races. So in short, it was a very inclusive government that included the diverse units, the demographic units existent in America. And it's just that he didn't have enough time to continue diversifying. Of course, he also diversified the military by allowing LGBTQ people to serve, which was the best news for LGBTQ people, because they are also people of the country. They are citizens. They pay tax. They love the country. They're still there. They buy products in the country. They live there. So why deny them rights? Why deny them political rights? Why deny them power? It's just like what they did to black Americans when they were slaves. They were not even called black Americans. They were just known as slaves. So they were not even considered citizens at that time. So those are the things. So Obama did a lot of diversification. But it was a bit short-lived. Of course, even though Obama was president, he didn't, the Senate went to the Republicans one time. I think one midterm election, they went to the Senate, to the Republicans while Obama was still president. And so the Democratic Party began to shrink. Why? And it's because of this majority democracy system that is still ingrained in the American psyche. That is how it is. And that's what brought Trump. Because if you had been following what was happening in the houses of the political houses in America, you would predict Trump was going to win, or GOP, because the Republicans got the House of the Senate. But it doesn't mean, sometimes just because you win the Senate House doesn't mean you're going to win the election. It's just that it's an indicator of a tide. There's a tide happening. So Democrats should have seen that tide going against them. But anyway, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So she didn't win, but she didn't win the Electoral College vote. And why? Because of the same issue. The Electoral College is, if you look at it very keenly, sorry to say, it's still not as diversified as it should be. This is the same thing that happened with the Oscars, the same thing that happened, with the Oscars. There was that the diversity principle has been realized. It's just like Einstein finding the theory of relativity. It's not that relativity started existing when Einstein found it. No, it has always been there. It's just that Einstein finally found it, the eureka moment. And then our eureka moment in sociology is the principle of diversity. The law of diversity is that humanity is diverse, is naturally diverse, and therefore they should be that diversity should be recognized and given its due rights to exist. Yes, because it is part of nature. And so that eureka moment came, and Obama applied the principle. But as you all know, we thought Hillary Clinton would come in and continue applying that principle, and it didn't happen. And so we had Trump. And Trump comes from a different school of thought that is not pro-diversity. And it's very evident from the immigration policies he's been passing. They were all against non-white people, non-white. Today he'll pick the Mexicans, tomorrow he'll pick Haitians, tomorrow he'll pick blacks, then he will think of somebody else and change his mind. It's because of the school of thought he's from, and the school of thought it's more based on monocultural purity, the one that sees America as maybe predominantly white and Christian, and not necessarily diverse groups of people, which is the reality. The reality is America is more diverse than ever. That is America today. America of 1776, when they got the independence, is not the America of today. And it won't be. In 2050, America will not also be the same. We are always changing. Every country changes. Every country, we just go through, time is in sync with nature. Yes, it's part of life. And what we should do to have a very harmonious system, we should also inculcate that the changes that time brings. Time and tide waits for no man. So we should follow time. And the time now is for diversity. And which is why if Trump, you've seen even Trump has toned down a bit on his pure, his, I don't want to use that word, but it's what is there, racial purity theory, and he's toned down on it because the reality is against him. America is diverse. That's a fact. And the best you could do is work around diversifying the system, so that diversification should not just be a principle of the Democrats. It should also be the principle of Republicans. And if Republicans don't want to diversify the system because they feel it goes against their values, then they don't need to be in power. It's simple, because reality is there are diverse people. And it's not that there are no diverse units that don't support Republicans. They're there. We have, LGBTQ people who are, they support the Republican Party. And then we have all of there are few blacks who support the GOP. But when you look at its structure, it is not really built to accommodate everybody. And that is the thing that is letting down people like Trump. And I only say is that the only war now is between that racial purity versus the racial mixing, and which is the reality that should not be left out. So Obama was the representative of the diversified democracy, and he did well in it. And then now you have Trump with a majority democracy, whereby one unit tends to overload over the rest. So we're going on with this